Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2009 Pontiac Vibe, and it's here because the check engine light is on, the ABS light is on, traction control light is on, VSC off is blinking. I'm not sure if the all-wheel drive light is on for a problem too, and the red brake warning light is on. The parking brake is not on at this time. The customer replaced the left rear wheel bearing himself, and I believe in doing so he damaged the left rear speed sensor. All of my research shows that left rear speed sensor fits 9 and 10 Pontiac Vibes, and it's not available in North America. I found one on eBay. Retail in Canada is over $600 for that speed sensor. Now, Toyota Matrix is basically the same vehicle, so I've got a speed sensor for a Toyota Matrix. It's about half the price, but I'm not 100% certain it's going to work. What we're going to do is put it up in the air and access the connector and plug it in and see if it clears the codes. So it was in here last week and I scanned it, and it had this C0215 left rear wheel speed sensor circuit signal fault. It also had a C1201 engine control system fault. It has a problem with an oxygen sensor and evap emission system problem. I'm hoping that the C1201 code is not going to turn on the red brake warning light, because this vehicle is here for an inspection. So this is the speed sensor here. So this is the sensor for a 2009 Toyota Matrix, and in the pictures it looks the same, but it's a different number from the one for the Pontiac Vibe. I don't like this box. This is the way I got it, so it's obviously been, maybe somebody's already tried this. So vice grip's on that sensor and it won't turn. The sensor runs up here, bolted to here, and there's a grommet goes through the wheel well, and to get access to that I got to get into the back seat. This is just disgusting. So there's that connector right there on the C-pillar. Well, I'm going to try and get in there with a pair of needle nose. Well, that's a good sign. It plugs in. It kind of looks correct. Well, we're going to see if the code goes to history now. So we're going to see if there's any codes. Let's clear the codes. And let's display codes again. Well, let's clear the codes out of the engine control system. It has a damaged rear O2 sensor and an evap system problem. Okay, so we have no current codes in the engine control computer. Let's go back into the anti-lock brake control computer, VSC, clear codes, yes, display codes. Alright, so let's go into data now and make sure that speed sensor works. We should be able to pass a piece of metal reluctor in front of it and generate a speed signal. I do have a CV shaft for that. I'm hoping the speed sensor reluctor is not damaged. Where's the speed signal? Okay, maybe it's not in this ABS data 1. Yeah, let's try ABS data 2. Front right wheel speed, rear right, rear left. Well, let's look at both of these. So I'm going to put a piece of metal in front of that sensor and see if it'll generate a code signal. Well, as you can see, it generates a signal, so it's just a matter of getting the old one out now, and hopefully the reluctor on the CV shaft is still intact and not damaged. Next step, getting the old speed sensor out of the knuckle. Well, it's not cooperating. Keep working on it. I managed to get it out, but you can see the reluctor inside there. There's a slinger that's pressed into the back of the wheel bearing assembly there that's popped out of position. So I'm going to have to pull the wheel bearing off and try and get that slinger out of there because it's spinning. Let's see if I can set this up so you can see what I'm talking about. If that trouble light will stay there. So watch when I turn the wheel. See that metal sleeve with a hole in it, but you can see part of this reluctor teeth. That's supposed to be stationary in there. Now let's take the wheel bearing off. So this steel sleeve here with the hole in it is supposed to be pressed into this back of this knuckle, and it's already obviously moved outwards. So I'm going to try and cut that right off because I don't have that anyways. I don't think it's that critical. The speed sensor goes through that hole through here and picks up the reluctor teeth as long as those reluctor teeth aren't damaged. So I got that slinger out of there and I inspected the reluctor teeth and they're not damaged, amazingly. So I cleaned the bore with a Rolllock sanding disc. Here's that piece that I cut it off, and it's not going back in there. So we'll put some never sees on here. I've already test fitted this wheel speed sensor in here. It looks like it fits just fine. So it's a matter of removing all the mounting bolts where they're attached and route this new sensor. Well, that's the speed sensor installed. It fits. I had difficulty with this bolt up here. It goes down from the top and it was rusted in there, so I had to cut the flange, or the ear was rusted off anyways. So I've got it in there and plugged in. We're going to turn the key on and see if we got a speed signal. Well, a good sign is that all the warning lights are off on the dash. That was in ABS data 2. One of the ones on the top right. Right rear wheel speed. Rear left. So I'm going to spin the rotor. Okay, so the sensor is working. Well, let's put it back together and see if any warning lights come back on a road test. So as soon as I started it, the check engine light came on, and the traction control light came on, the all-wheel drive light came on, the VSC's light started flashing. Let's see what code's generated again. I'm sure the CO2 sensor code. So we're going to have a look in the ABS system and see what codes is generated. Yeah, engine control system fault. So at least the red brake warning light is off now. Let's see what's in the engine. I'm sure it's the O2 sensor, current, oxygen sensor, heater circuit, and control module performance code. Oh boy. Well, we'll discuss the balance of the repairs with the customer. So Here's another concern, this exhaust flange between the catalytic converter, which is up here, is rusted out. The O2 sensor is ripped off. I wonder if we can get a repair flange to fix this. So I cut this damaged end off of the O2 sensor wire. You can see the terminals are shorted together inside there. And I've determined these two white wires are for the O2 sensor heater. The black wire is the signal wire because I held my finger on the ignition power wire and touched this one, and it showed up as a positive voltage on the O2 sensor signal. So I'm assuming the gray wire now is the ground. So I'm going to cut out this rusted out flange here and put a piece of pipe in here and try and wire in a universal O2 sensor. So this is the sensor I'm putting in. It's off of a Chevy truck, 2008, 5.3 rear O2 sensor. And this view shows the harness side, which doesn't match the sensor side. So, but the sensor numbers are, or the terminals are labeled there, as you can see, barely. C and A. So A is the low signal. B is the high signal, or the O2 sensor ground. And that's the blue wire. Can't see it. Yeah, B is the blue wire. So I'm looking at, this is the vehicle in question. There's the O2 sensor, and of course it doesn't show the wires on the sensor. They're different color. At this connector it shows the wires. So by trial and error I've determined the two white wires are the heater circuit on the sensor, which comes from the fuse up here, and I have power there. And the black wire on the sensor is actually the signal. So I'm going to wire it up temporarily. So I cut that piece of two flanges out of there because they were rotten, and I made a piece of pipe 2.5 inch to about 2 1/4 and bolted it in there with a couple of clamps. Now I've got this O2 sensor in here and wired up to the wires I think are correct. The two black wires on the GM sensor were the heater circuit, which go to the two white wires on the old sensor. The gray wire is the O2 sensor ground, which is white on this one, and the blue wire is the O2 sensor signal, which is actually black on this one. So we're going to start this up, check for exhaust leaks, and see if we get any oxygen sensor activity out of this thing. Well, I got it running. I'm going to see if there's any codes first off. That's a good sign. And let's look at data. And, well, O2 sensor data would be a good list to look at. Bank 1, sensor 2. Bank 1, sensor 2, voltage is at 0. Can't be 0. Bank 1, sensor 1 is sitting at 3.15 volts. It's an AFR, or a wideband O2. Well, it is possible the one sensor I put in is no good, but I had it in my spare parts drawer, so it should be okay. I'm going to do some checking. Put a different oxygen sensor in there, and I'm physically graphing the voltage out of it, and it's flat line about 700 millivolts, 720 millivolts, and I'm on the blue wire and the white wire. So now I'm going to hook those up, blue to black and white to gray, and hopefully we get the O2 sensor reading on the vehicle. Well, that's better. 0.7 volts. Let's see if it responds to a snap throttle. Gotta climb up on top of the vehicle. Definitely responds to snap, throttle, accel, and decel, so we'll beat up those wires and seal up that harness. Well, ask me if I'm happy. Went about 1 kilometer and all these lights came back on again. So we're going to scan it and see what code it's set now. I recorded wheel speed signals and I noticed the left rear was dropping out. So here's the recording of the 4 speed signals: front left, front right, rear left, rear right. So you can see the rear left is dropping out for some reason. Now that could be because of an excessive air gap on the sensor. Remember, this is not the right sensor for the vehicle. I couldn't tell if the sensor was any longer than the original one because the original one was busted off. Oh boy. I know the reluctor didn't look damaged. There was no damaged teeth on it. Let's see what code it generated. It generated some kind of codes. C0215, debris stuck to speed sensor left rear. So I don't think there's any debris stuck to speed sensor left rear. I'll pull that wheel off and have a look, see if I can figure out what the air gap is like. So looking in the hole, it looks pretty clean, but I turned it slowly here. I noticed that the center of the reluctor is in the center of the hole. I don't know if that's normal. And there's rust buildup. But there is one damaged tooth I didn't see before. Where is it? Right there. There's like 3 teeth right there that are potentially damaged. Oh boy. So there's the damaged area. And considering it picks up almost on the inside edge of the reluctor instead of the outside edge, that's probably what's causing it. Now I do have another CV shaft, but to change the CV shaft we got to undo this upper bolt here and tilt the knuckle out. Well, I guess we're going to give that a try. So I was able to get that top arm disconnected, and by putting the bolt back in and a pry bar I was able to pry out on this enough to disengage the axle from the inboard joint here. It's just got a C-clip, like a conventional CV shaft clip, and then push it up into that corner and pull it down this way past these bolts. It just barely comes out. I don't think it would come out if that collar was in there, that one that I took out, because that wouldn't allow the CV shaft to come this way. So we're going to put it back together now. So I got it back together again. That particular reluctor looks more centered in the hole than the other one was. And I'm going to spin it by hand, try to spin it at a consistent speed. That seems better. Well, let's go for a road test now and see how it is. Well, that looks better. The bottom right one is the left rear. No more dropouts. Amazing how sensitive it was to that reluctor tooth damage. I didn't see it the first time I had that apart, but I didn't have the axle shaft right out. So, also that reluctor is pulled off of the shaft about a couple millimeters. A few thousandths of an inch. I can see an air gap between it and the housing once I got it off. I'm sure the check engine light is going to come on because this thing had evap codes for small leak detected. I think the filler pipe vent is compromised behind that plastic shield on the left inner fender. It was pretty rusty. So it's going to probably turn the check engine light on. Hopefully that doesn't disable the traction control and ABS. Definitely not turning on the red brake warning light. We'll take it for a little run. So the speed signals work just fine. No warning lights on yet, but I'm sure there's pending codes in the ECM. I'm going to check. Engine, codes menu, display codes, pending codes. No pending codes. Well, I'm not going to guarantee the check engine light's not going to come on, because I did put a used O2 sensor in there. It's for a Chevy truck. Data display, monitor data. I'm sure it hasn't run an evap system test. Notice all these evap monitor incomplete, cat monitor complete. Well, that's it for now. At least the red brake warning light is off. Thanks for watching.